that spilled over onto oil as well. We continue to see oil gain, in fact, and no surprise there, right, Ankita? I mean, we are seeing markets gain as well on the back of the positivity on the US debt ceiling getting resolved, that particular crisis. And as that gets resolved, demand worries will go away for oil. Growth will come back. At least that's the expectation, that's the anticipation. Let's look at where WTI is at. It's just below the $73 a barrel mark. We're seeing Brent also at just below $77. So definitely a positive on both those fronts. Let's though take it to what events to watch out for today. What should we keep our eyes out on, Ankita?
Right, Harsh, we will quickly look at the events that we will be keeping a track of as of today. We have the Eurozone CPI number that will be coming out, and the US crude oil inventories data that is also likely to come out today. And in the earnings calendar, we have the SBI, ITC, JSW Steel, NTPC and Power Grid that will be reporting their Q4 numbers. And in corporate action, we have General Stainless Steel and Sterile Tech that will be considering a fundraise, and GIC Housing Finance that will be considering a revalidation on the issue of NCD up to 2,500 crores. And we also have the hearing by NCLT today on the Spice Check insolvency case. So these are the events that we will be tracking very closely.
Right, interesting set of events, especially in the thick of earnings. You always have a ton of things to look out for. But let's quickly move on. Let's begin with what's on everyone's radar this morning. The US President Joe Biden and the Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said they thought a deal to avoid a US debt default was in reach. Speaking at the White House, Biden had said, and I quote, "I'm confident that we'll get the agreement on the budget that America will not default. We are going to come together because there's no alternative way to do the right thing for the country. We have to move on."
Right, and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer urged JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon and other leading bank executives in a meeting to push all members of Congress to take the threat of a default off the table. Schumer met Dimon and other bank CEOs at the Capitol to discuss the debt ceiling and other issues. The huddle comes ahead of a scheduled meeting on Thursday in Washington between Wall Street leaders and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, with debt ceiling likely to be on the agenda.
Now, there are interesting comments coming in from IMF's Geeta Gopinath. She says she sees sizable risks that inflation will remain high or accelerate in many emerging markets and urged central banks to keep monetary policies tight. She added that markets were probably too optimistic about what it would take to bring down inflation in emerging markets. Meanwhile, she did sound optimistic over EMs, which is emerging markets, saying she expects growth in the region to hold up reasonably well this year.
And in the latest on the banking crisis front, UBS estimates a financial hit of around $17 billion from its emergency takeover of Credit Suisse. And the Swiss banking giant flagged a total negative impact of around $13 billion in fair value adjustments of the new combined entities' assets and liabilities, with a potential $4 billion hit from legislation, litigation and regulatory costs.
And moving on to gaming giant Tencent. Tencent reported an 11% jump in quarterly revenue, marking its fastest growth in more than a year, as the company saw a big rebound in payment volumes, ad sales as well as gaming. The results mark a strong bounce back to growth for Tencent after a succession of negative and flat quarters.
And cryptocurrency giant Tether has said it is going to purchase hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin to back the world's largest stablecoin. The company said it would invest as much as 15% of its net profit into Bitcoin to diversify the reserves that back its USDT token.